3 years ago, this company had no product, almost no revenue, and a plan that most investors thought was insane: build a frontier AI lab, but slow down on purpose. Today, that company is worth more than most airlines, most banks, and most countries' entire stock markets combined. We're talking about Anthropic, the maker of Claude. This is the story of how Anthropic did it, and whether the numbers can possibly keep holding up. To understand Anthropic, you have to understand OpenAI, because that's where it came from. In 2021, a group of senior OpenAI researchers, led by siblings Dario and Daniela Amade, walked out the door. The reported disagreement: OpenAI was moving too fast, chasing scale and commercial products, while this group wanted a lab built from day one around AI safety. So they started their own company. Anthropic launched with roughly $124 million in seed funding and a mission that sounded contrarian for Silicon Valley: build powerful AI, but treat safety and interpretability as core to the business, not an afterthought. At the time, this looked like a noble but slow path. No consumer product, no hype cycle, just research and a small team trying to outthink the industry rather than outship it. Between 2021 and 2023, Anthropic basically missed the moment that defined the entire AI industry. In November 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT. It became the fastest-growing consumer app in history, and it instantly made AI chatbot a household concept. Anthropic had no equivalent to ride that wave. Anthropic's first model, Claude 1, didn't ship until March 2023, months after ChatGPT had already dominated headlines. Claude 2 followed that summer. Both models were solid, safety-focused, and respected in AI circles. But they lagged behind OpenAI's GPT on raw capability, context length, and developer adoption. Financially, this period was almost revenue-free. Anthropic wasn't running on product-market fit, it was running on narrative. Big strategic investors, including Google and Spark Capital, poured money in not because Anthropic was printing revenue, and also they didn't want OpenAI to run away with the entire AI market uncontested. By early 2024, that strategic backing had pushed Anthropic's valuation to roughly $18 billion. Impressive for a company with barely any commercial product, but still a distant second to OpenAI's headline-grabbing numbers. This was the quiet phase, and it was about to end. 2024 is when everything changed because of one release, Claude 3. Claude 3 launched in March 2024 as a full model family, giving Anthropic real options on speed, cost, and capability for the first time. The real breakthrough came months later with Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which developers quickly recognized as one of the best coding models available anywhere. That mattered because it lined up with where enterprises actually wanted to spend. Not consumer chatbots, but AI that could write and review production code. Anthropic also leaned hard into distribution, making Claude directly available through Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud. For companies already running on that infrastructure, adding Claude wasn't a new vendor relationship. It was flipping a switch on a platform they already trusted. By the end of 2024, that combination, a strong coding model plus frictionless enterprise access, pushed annualized revenue to roughly $1 billion. A company with close to zero meaningful revenue a year earlier had crossed a $1 billion run rate. That was just the warm-up. If 2024 was the turning point, 2025 was the explosion. In March 2025, Anthropic closed a Series E round at a $61.5 billion valuation, and already staggering for a company sitting at $18 billion a year earlier. The real accelerant, though, was Claude Code, a standalone agentic coding product that could plan, write, test, and iterate on real software with minimal handholding. It went fully public in May 2025 and exploded almost immediately. Over $1 billion in annualized revenue by November, then passed $2.5 billion just a few months after that. At one point, analysts estimated roughly 4% of all public GitHub commits worldwide were authored by Claude Code alone. Enterprise adoption followed the same curve. Over 300,000 business customers by late 2025, and accounts spending $100,000 plus per year, growing nearly sevenfold in 12 months. By September 2025, That growth justified a $13 billion Series F round at a $183 billion valuation, tripling in about 6 months. Run rate revenue, roughly $1 billion at the start of the year, had rocketed past $5 billion by August. The $60 billion milestone was already ancient history. Here's where the story stops sounding like a normal startup and starts sounding unbelievable. In February 2026, Anthropic closed a $30 billion Series G round at a $380 billion valuation, one of the largest funding rounds ever recorded. Revenue matched the pace. Annualized revenue blew past $9 billion by the end of 2025, then hit around $30 billion by the close of Q1 2026. Less than 3 months later, in May 2026, a Series H round brought in $65 billion, pushing the valuation to $965 billion. With total funds raised to date around $125 billion. From an $18 billion valuation in early 2024 to nearly $965 billion by mid-2026, roughly a 50-fold increase in a little over 2 years on the same core product line, in the same market. And in June 2026, Anthropic confidentially filed for an IPO, reportedly targeting a valuation around that same $965 billion mark. Is this growth real, or has the story gotten ahead of itself? The bull case, revenue, isn't hypothetical. Going from $1 billion to $30 billion in annualized revenue in about 15 months has essentially no precedent in enterprise software history. The bear case, that growth depends on enterprises continuing to expand AI spending at this pace, on Claude holding its coding edge as every major lab races to close the gap, and on investors continuing to price growth as if the curve never bends. Notably, some early backers, investors in at $4 billion in 2023 or even $61.5 billion in early 2025, have reportedly skipped the newest, priciest rounds entirely. And OpenAI remains a live rival on a parallel track, with the revenue and valuation lead trading hands depending on the month. So, how did Anthropic go from zero to $60 billion in 3 years? It didn't stop there. It used that milestone as a launching pad to nearly $1 trillion in under 2 more years, riding a coding product enterprises couldn't stop adopting and a distribution strategy that met big companies exactly where they already lived. But the real story isn't Anthropic alone. It's what happens when a company built on moving carefully ends up growing faster than almost anything in enterprise tech history. Whether that bet still looks smart in another 3 years is the question this story hasn't answered yet. In the end, the numbers don't lie, and so do we on this channel. If you enjoyed watching this video, subscribe for more fascinating insights. Check the description for our sources. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.